Hi, and welcome to Dede Talks, the art of specialty lenses. Today, we're starting our new platform for Dede Talks. We focus more on education and the important tips that will help increase the success of your specialty practice. Today, our guest is Dr. Stephanie Wu from Wu University. Welcome, Stephanie. What topic are you going to talk about today?
Okay, so like I said, we are going to be talking about some of the most common tips that I love giving to doctors and staff and anybody that's involved in specialty lens billing. And it's such a task and a feat when you start getting into something like this. So what I've done is come up with a few of the most common things that I think will help you and your practices. So just a few tips that I'd like to start off with is adding as many ICD-10 codes to your charts as possible. Now, a lot of the students that are coming out or the new grads are used to this because in school, we have to put in every single diagnosis code when you see patients, whatever happened to them at that appointment. But the reason this is really important is because an insurance company may not cover, let's say, a bandage contact lens for a foreign body, but it might cover it for a corneal abrasion. So in this case, specialty lenses are no exception. There's sometimes diagnosis codes that are covered for specialty lens reimbursement, and there's other ones that aren't. So what I like to do is put every single diagnosis code that that patient has, because you will be surprised at some of the codes that end up being reimbursable. So that's one of the biggest things that I always like to tell staff and doctors, when you're doing your charts, that's the very first thing that you should be doing. Then after that, you're going to want to add in your CPT codes. And the way I think of it is you're assigning codes that basically match that what would make sense for that particular code based off of the diagnosis codes. So for instance, if you're doing an OCT on a patient, that needs to match up with some sort of diagnosis code that you've put in there. So maybe they have glaucoma, let's say. Same thing with specialty lenses, CPT codes. These are like the fitting codes for a particular patient. So in most commonly would be something like 92072, which is fitting for keratoconus lenses. So you have to have keratoconus in that case as a diagnosis code, or else they will not match. And it's very likely that the insurance company is just going to reject that. It's also really important to find out with the insurance contracts, and you have to read through these, what services can be done on the same day and which ones cannot be done on the same day together. This is something that varies between insurance companies, so you have to look at all of the different insurance companies that you're contracted with to figure out that type of information. Another piece that I love talking about, because I think this is so important, is do not apologize for the patient's insurance. What I like to do is explain to the patient that this insurance may not allow these two tests to be done at the same time, or your insurance company does not allow this type of specialty lens fitting. And it's not your fault. It is not the staff's fault. It's not the practice's fault. This is a relationship between the insurance company and the patient. And I think this is so important because we get in our heads a lot, and we are empathetic people, right? We love helping people see, especially through specialty lenses. But there are in some cases that insurance companies just don't pay for whatever service you're wanting to provide to that patient. And so I just always want doctors and staff to remember it's not your fault. This is a relationship between the insurance company and the patient. Another tip I like to always give is preventing surprises. So having patients sign a contract or something when they first check in and making them aware that they are responsible for any co-pays, any deductibles, any balances, and they are due on the day of service. Another thing I always recommend is collecting co-pays prior to being seen. And this really does help the shock at the back counter when the staff are trying to collect the copay or whatever services are due. And instead of saying, oh, I didn't know I had to pay that, and now the services have already been performed, if you collect things right up front, then it's easy for the patient. If maybe they don't have the funds available that day, okay, great, let's just reschedule you on a day that you will be able to have that payment. So I always like to collect the copays prior to the patient being taken back. And then in my practice, I have a whole list of services as far as specialty lens goes, and it says exactly what type of lens service fee and material fee at the different levels. And that is something that they sign before we even take the patient back. So again, there's no surprises. This is all fully transparent. That's all I have for you, Dede.
Great, Stephanie. Thank you very much. Those are some really great and helpful tips. I will let you also know that ABB has some sample forms as well for our practitioners. You can just reach out to your ABB consultant and they can help with that. I do want to thank you, Stephanie. I do want to recognize Wu University, your organization that has done well with education for our practitioners. And I want a special thanks to go out to ABB. And thank you for attending Dede Talks. Stay tuned for part 2 of this discussion on Dede Talks.